Hello, good morning children. How are you all? Today in this video I am going to explain class 8 history 7th chapter. Okay, 7th chapter civilizing the native, educating the nation. Okay, civilizing the native and educating the nation. How the civilization has been emerged after the British rule and during the British rule, not after the British rule, during the British rule, and how they have provided opportunities to educate the nation, that means the people, the Indian people, everything you are going to learn in this chapter. Let's see. In the earlier chapters, you have seen how British rule affected Rajas and Nawabs, peasants and tribals. In this chapter, we will try and understand what implication it had for the lives of students. So, in the previous chapters, already, when people rebel 1857 and afterwards, 6th chapter, weavers, iron smelters, in that the common peoples, how their lives affected, you have learned. Now, you are going to learn about the students' lives. What happened to the students? What were the conditions of the students by that time? For the British in India wanted not only territorial conquest and control over revenues. It wanted not only territorial conquest and control over revenues. They also felt that they had a cultural mission. They had to civilize the natives, change their customs and values. Okay, so here not only their motive is not only occupying the nation, not only occupying the wealth of the country, but civilizing the people, their customs, their traditions, and they want to convert according to their convenience. Whose convenience here? There means it belongs to British. According to them, their conditions, they want to change the people of India. What changes were to be introduced? How were Indians to be educated, civilized, and made into what the British believed were good subjects? Then, how we can change these Indians? What are the good subjects to teach them? The British could find no simple answers to these questions. They continued to be debated for many decades, but this was the question: how? What subjects we have to taught? How we can change according to our thoughts, our actions? This was the question, and they have thought for decades. Several years they have these questions in their mind, and they haven't found any answer. How the British saw education. How the British saw education. So, here, education. In what way? Through this education. How we can change the Indians. Let's see. Let us look at what the British thought and did, and how some of the ideas of education that we now take for granted evolved in the last 200 years. In the process of this inquiry, we will also see how Indians reacted to British ideas and how they developed their own views about how Indians were to be educated. Of course, they had implemented some measures to educate the Indians, and through that process, our Indians also got revolted against them. They have opposed, they have rejected those ideas of the Britishers, but they have got success in implementing some educational methods. The tradition of Orientalism. So let's see the tradition of Orientalism. So what is this Orientalism? Let's see. In 1783, a person named William Jones arrived in Kolkata. In which year? In 1783. What is the name of the person? William Jones. Where did he come? He came to Kolkata. Okay. In 1783, William Jones came to Calcutta. He had an appointment as a junior judge at the Supreme Court that the company had set up. So here William Jones, who was he? He is a junior judge in civil court. So as a junior judge he arrived to Kolkata. In addition to being an expert in law, Jones was a linguist. Linguist means the person who knows several languages. Okay. So he is not only a judge, but he was a linguist. He had studied Greek and Latin at Oxford, Greek language, Latin language. Knew French and English. Had picked up Arabic from a friend and had also learned Persian. So see how many languages he knows. Greek, Latin, French, English, Arabic and Persian. All these languages he knows. That's why he was called as a linguist. At Calcutta, he began spending many hours a day with pundits who taught him the subtleties of Sanskrit language, grammar and poetry. So during his free time, what he used to do, he used to sat with the scholars, pundits, and he used to discuss about the Sanskrit language, and he used to learn grammar and poetry from those scholars. Soon he was studying ancient Indian texts on law, philosophy, religion, politics, morality, arithmetic, medicine and the other sciences. So after learning Sanskrit and its grammar, poetry, later he studied all these Indian texts. What were the books on different topics such as law, philosophy, religion, politics, morality, arithmetic, on these whatever books available in India, he used to read them. Jones discovered that his interests were shared by many British officials living in Calcutta at the time. So he studied and he discussed about them with his friends, Britishers. Englishmen like Henry Thomas Colebrook and Nathaniel Hallhell were also busy discovering the ancient Indian heritage, mastering Indian languages and translating Sanskrit and Persian works into English. So he found two friends who were similar to his views. Who were they? Henry Thomas and the second person is Nathaniel Hallhell. So these two also familiar and similar to this William Jones. So William Jones met these whose views and whose ideas were same. Together with them, Jones set up the Asiatic Society of Bengal and started a journal called Asiatic Researchers. So with them he started a journal that is Asiatic Researchers. That means after gone through the Indian texts on different subjects, what they have learned and what they want to introduce to the world, everything they started in writing a journal named Asiatic Researchers. Jones and Colebrook came to represent a particular attitude towards India. So William Jones and Colebrook, Henry Thomas Colebrook, have a particular attitude towards India. That means same attitude. They shared a deep respect for ancient cultures, both of India and the West. Indian civilization, they felt, had attained its glory in the ancient past, but it had subsequently declined. So, through these books, what they have in ancient India, they have rich culture, but soon after it got declined, it decreased. In order to understand India, it was necessary to discover the sacred and legal texts that were produced in the ancient period. So, to preserve that culture, what they wanted to do, they wanted to discover discover the sacred and legal texts of India. For only those texts could reveal the real ideas and laws of the Hindus and Muslims, and only a new study of these texts could form the basis of future development in India. So, by reading the ancient books of Hinduism and Muslimism, the true culture of India, they can know. That was the idea of William Jones and Henry Thomas. And by learning those cultures from those old books, they want to develop India in such a way. So Jones and Coolbrooke went about discovering ancient texts, understanding their meaning, translating them, and making their findings known to others. So they started their work, they had gone researchers, and they introduced whatever they found to the world. This project, they believed, would not only help the British learn from Indian culture, but it would also help Indians rediscover their own heritage and understand the lost glories of their past. So this research, what they felt through this research, they are not only going to learn the Indian culture, but the Indians also will know the past culture, the rich culture of their past. This was the opinion of William Jones and Henry Thomas Colebrooke. In this process, the British would become the guardians of Indian culture as well as its masters. Influenced by such ideas, many company officials argued that the British ought to promote Indian rather than Western learning. So, with these researchers, many Britishers, what they felt, the company officials argued that the British ought to promote Indian rather than Western learning. So, the Indians, these people, they are promoting the Indian culture, not Western culture. They felt that institutions should be set up to encourage the study of ancient Indian texts and teach Sanskrit and Persian literature and poetry. So, British officials, they found this much culture, this much knowledge is India having. So, by introducing those old texts to the Indians, the Indian people can learn very well. So, for that, what the officials suggested, they suggested to set up Sanskrit and Persian literature and poetry. The institutions to teach Sanskrit, Persian literature and poetry. That means educational institutions, they wanted to set up. Start. The officials also thought that Hindus and Muslims ought to be taught what they were already familiar with and what they valued and treasured, not subjects that were aligned to them. So, what Indians knew, that only, those subjects only we will teach them more detail, but not the subjects which were unknown to the Indians. This was the suggestion given by this William Jones and Henry Thomas. Only then, they believed, could the British hope to win a place in the hearts of the natives. If the Britishers are doing like this, means then only they can win the hearts of the Indians. Only then could the aligned rulers expect to be respected by their subjects. Then only the respect will increase in the hearts of the Indians. This was the feeling of the Britishers. Why? Here they want to respect the lifestyle, the rich culture of the Indians by setting up institutions, educational institutions and teaching Sanskrit language, Persian language and poetry. The Indians will respect the Britishers. This was the mindset of the Britishers. With this object in view, a madrasa was set up in Calcutta in 1781 to promote the study of Arabic. So, during that process, they have started a madrasa. That means Muslim educational institutions. Okay, Muslim educational institution. Madrasa means. In which year? In 1781. A madrasa. Madrasa. madrasa was set up in Calcutta. Actually, we will call it as madrasa, not madrasa, but they have madrasa. Okay, Muslim educational institution. To promote the study of Arabic, Persian and Islamic law. So, in this madrasa, what they will teach? Islamic, okay, they will teach Persian, Arabic and Islamic law. And the Hindu college was established in Benares in 1791. So, for Muslims, they have set up this, and in 1791, a Hindu college. In which place? In Benares. In Benares. Okay. To learn the Sanskrit literature. The Hindu college was established in Benares in 1791 to encourage the study of ancient Sanskrit texts that would be useful for the administration of the country. So, a madrasa was set up in 1781 in Calcutta for the study of Islamic law, Persian and Arabic literature, and at the same time in 1791 they have established a Hindu college in Benares to study the ancient Sanskrit literature. Not all officials shared these views. Many were very strong in their criticism of the Orientals, but there were some people who were against to these ideas. Okay, next. Grave errors of the East. Grave errors. Errors means mistakes. Grave errors of the East. So, after setting up these institutions, what happened? Let's see. Grave errors of the East. From the early 19th century, many British officials began to criticize the Orientalist vision of learning. So, as I said, many British officials began to see why we have to set up these educational institutions, that these Indians should learn their culture. Is it good like that? They started questioning. They said that knowledge of the East was full of errors and unscientific thought. Eastern literature was non-serious and light-hearted. So, this culture, that Indian culture was full of errors, non-scientific, no science at all, and light-hearted. So, they argued that it was wrong on the part of the British to spend so much effort in encouraging the study of Arabic and Sanskrit language and literature. So, in Indian culture, in Indian texts, Sanskrit texts and Arabic texts, so many mistakes, so many errors are there. They are non-serious, non-scientific. Then, why our British officials have to put this much effort in establishing and encouraging, educating the Indians? This was the argument of the other British officials. James Mill was one of those who attacked the Orientals. The British effort, he declared, should not be to teach what the natives wanted or what they respected in order to please them and win a place in their herd. Then James Mill, you know, who prepared the Indian map, he attacked those people who were arguing, who were against this settlement. This is not only encouraging but winning the herds of the Indians. Through this, by setting up educational institutions, we are winning the herds of the Indians. This is the strong argument of the James Mill. The aim of education ought to be to teach what was useful and practical. So, Indians should be made familiar with the scientific and technical advances that the West had made. So, the aim of education, he said, what is the aim of education here? Ought to be to teach what was useful and practical. Here, we are educating the Indians in a way that is useful to them, and it should be practical. That means it is useful in normal life. In that way, we are educating the Indians. And so, Indians should be made familiar with the scientific and technical advances that the West had made. If they are educated, then only they will know, they will learn our technical knowledge. Rather than with the poetry and the sacred literature of the Orient. Without, first of all, to learn the scientific things and technical advances, first of all, the basic knowledge should be there. They should understand the culture, they should understand the literature. That's why we had set up these institutions. This was the supporting argument of James Smith. By the 1830s, the attack on the Orientalists became sharper. One of the most outspoken and influential of such critics of the time was Thomas Babington Macaulay. So, by the time this Macaulay, T.B. Macaulay, he supported those critics. He saw India as an uncivilized country that needed to be civilized. So, in the opinion of Macaulay, he said that Indians are uncivilized and they needed to be civilized. That means something betterment should be there in the lives of the Indians. No branch of Eastern knowledge, according to him, could be compared to what England had produced. So, in his opinion, Thomas Babington Macaulay's opinion, only English people are more technical, more knowledgeable people. So, there was no comparison with Indians. Who could deny, declared Macaulay, that a single shelf of a good European library was worth the whole native literature of India and Arabia. So, in criticizing way, he said that whole literature of the India is not equal to a single shell of the European library. That means their culture was very good than Indian literature. He argued that the British government in India stop wasting public money in promoting Oriental learning, for it was of no practical use. And he said that here, without any practical use, our British officials are wasting so much money in setting up, in encouraging and setting up educational institutions. With great energy and passion, Macaulay emphasized the need to teach the English language. He felt that knowledge of English would allow Indians to read some of the finest literature the world had produced. It would make them aware of the developments in Western science and philosophy. Teaching of English could thus be a way of civilizing people, changing their tastes, values, and culture. So, what here Macaulay suggested? He suggested, despite of teaching Arabic, Persian, not Arabic, Persian and Islamic language, and at the same time the Sanskrit culture, better to teach English to the Indians so that they can grasp the knowledge, the scientific techniques of the European culture. And it would change their values, their tastes, their culture. This was the suggestion made by Macaulay. Following Macaulay's minute, the English Education Act of 1835. So, Macaulay's Act, English Education Act. In which year it was? 1835. English Education Act was introduced in 1835. The decision was to make English the medium of instruction for higher education. So, through this act, what he had done, he made the English medium for higher education. For higher education, the student should learn through English medium only. And to stop the promotion of Oriental institutions like the Calcutta Madrasa and Benares Hindu College. And afterwards, through this act, he said to close these two institutions which were set up in Calcutta and Benares. These institutions were seen as temples of darkness that were falling of themselves into decay. So, he said they were temples of darkness. They are taking back the Indians into darkness, so that it's better to close those two educational institutions. English textbooks now began to be produced for schools, and at the same time, through this act, they have given English textbooks to schools also. Okay, next, education for commerce. So this is educating the nation's children. I hope till now you understood. The remaining part I will explain in the next video. Thank you. Have a nice day.